Somewhere in your house, there's a version of your life you keep promising yourself you'll get to. The shape you'd be in, the money in the bank, the kind of man you swore you'd become by now. And every year it just rolls over to the next, quiet as a bill you keep meaning to pay. Here's the truth nobody tells you. You aren't stuck because you don't know what you want. You're stuck because you've never slowed down long enough to look at the life you're actually building out loud, where you can hear it. Today, we stop the drift. We're going to stop letting life happen to you and start building it on purpose. Welcome to The Useful Man, a channel about learning, growing, and staying useful in a world that gets stranger by the day. These are the field notes of life, not fantasy life, not a privileged life, not an influencer life, just real life. In my life, I carry scars, deep scars you cannot see, earned the hard way. That's why I made this channel. Maybe you have no one and nowhere to turn to. Maybe we can find the answers here together. Most people spend their lives thinking about where they want to go. They daydream about it in traffic. They talk it over dinner. They lie awake running the highlight reel of their life they'll have someday. The better job, the paid off house, the retirement, the version of themselves that finally gets it figured out. But almost nobody stops long enough to look at the direction they're already moving. These are two completely different conversations. Here's the truth nobody says often enough. You are already building a future right now, today, whether you meant to or not. A lot of people think life gets built in big moments. The promotion, the wedding, the closing papers, the ribbon cutting ceremony, the day you finally arrive. But that's not where life gets built. It gets built on ordinary Tuesdays and random Wednesdays when nobody's watching. It gets built in small decisions that feel unimportant. What you eat, spend, scroll, or who you listen to. We call those things small. They aren't. Stack enough together and they become your whole story. Your health, your finances, your habits, your future. They become your life. Every habit is a vote. Every routine is a direction. Every dollar and hour is a brick. Whether you realize it or not, you are laying those bricks daily. Some do it on purpose, some by accident, but the wall gets built either way. That's why direction matters more than speed. You can sprint your whole life and end up at somewhere you never wanted to be because you never checked the compass. A useful man doesn't measure himself by how fast he's moving, but where he's pointed. Nobody accidentally arrives at a great or a bad life overnight. Those destinations are built one choice, one habit, one decision at a time. You either drift there through 1,000 unexamined choices, or you build it deliberately, brick by brick. Drift is the default. Building is a decision. Today, we're going to stop letting life happen to you and start building it on purpose. I need to clear something up. There's a word out there floating around that muddies up this whole conversation, manifestation. You've heard it. Think hard enough, send it to the universe, use a vision board, say the right affirmations, maybe light a candle, align your internal compass, or stand on one foot and hum at the moon. I don't know. The rules change every 6 months. I'm not here to mock anybody's hope, but let's be clear about what's actually happening when people claim they manifested something. It wasn't magic. It was attention. I'll give you a real example. Years ago, I wanted a motorcycle. I didn't need one. I already had one, but I was outgrowing my needs. Every time I saw that bike on the road, I caught myself looking. So I wrote it down. I taped pictures of that exact bite everywhere. On the bathroom mirror, on the refrigerator, on my truck's visor, and on my computer screensaver. Everywhere I turned, there it was. Year 1, it didn't happen. Money was tight. Life always spends your cash before you get a chance to. Year 2, I got closer. I went to the dealership. I sat on the bike and I took it for a test ride. That didn't help. It just made me want it more. But the numbers said it was still a luxury, so I couldn't responsibly afford it. So I went home without it. Pictures stayed up. The goal stayed on the list. Every time I saw them, it was just a quiet reminder, don't forget where you're headed. Year 3, I walked into that dealership and I bought it. It wasn't on the list anymore. It was in my garage, kind of. There was a lot on the road, but some call that manifestation. I call it years of adjusting priorities, saving money, and not forgetting. Those pictures didn't magically create the bike. They kept the goal alive until my actions caught up. That's the real power of visual reminders. When you put a goal where you can see it, your brain keeps working on it. You just stop forgetting. When you stop forgetting, you start making better decisions 1 month, 1 year at a time. Eventually, your goal list shows up in real life. The same applies to the stuff that doesn't make for exciting Instagram posts, like paying off debt, losing weight, or repairing a relationship. When a goal stays in front of you, you start noticing opportunities. You say no to what pulls you off course, and yes to what moves you forward. Your habits, your schedule, and your attention shift. And attention is the steering wheel. Sit with this for a minute. The goal didn't magically appear. You simply stopped forgetting it. That's the trick. Focus, awareness, repetition, and action. Working together. They look like magic from the outside. But from the inside, it's just a guy who stopped letting his goals fall to the bottom of the pile when life got busy. This is where short-term 0 to 3 month goals come in. They matter more than people think because most get obsessed with the big stuff. 5-year plans, dream house, retirement, those matter. But the short-term goals do what big ones can't. They give you evidence, and evidence is powerful. After years of talking about goals without finishing them, people start believing a lie. They see themselves as the guy who talks but never does, who plans but never follows through. Once that story takes root, every new goal feels suspicious before you even start. You stop trusting yourself. That's a dangerous place because now you aren't fighting the goal, you're fighting your own history. That's where small wins come in. Pay off one debt, lose 5 pounds, finish that course or open that savings account, clear the project collecting dust in the corner. None of those change your life overnight, but they change something more important, the story you tell yourself. Cross off that first goal and something clicks. You stop being the guy who just talks, you become the guy who actually does. That shift is worth more than the goal itself because now you've got proof, not motivation, proof. That's where I disagree with all those office motivational posters. Confidence doesn't come from motivation. A feeling is about as dependable as a shopping cart with a bad wheel. Some days it's great, other days it's in a ditch. Confidence comes from evidence, seeing tasks scratched off in your own handwriting. Not because someone told you to or that you could, because you did. There's the difference. One is encouragement, the other is proof. And proof wins arguments you're having with yourself. That's why you shouldn't erase complete goals. Scratch them off, leave them, and let them pile up. Build a record, build a case. When you hit a rough patch, and you will, and when you start doubting your progress, that list will be there to say you can do it. That's why you got to keep them. A useful man doesn't wait until he feels ready. He stacks enough small wins that the evidence becomes impossible to argue with. That's when belief shows up. Now let's talk about the goals that don't care about your schedule, the 3 to 6 months goals, the year-long goals, the 5-year goals, the ones that take time. These require seasons, not weekends. This is exactly where most people quit, because not because the goal was impossible or they weren't capable. They didn't lack talent. They quit because reality moves slower than their impatience. They'd try for a month, see no dramatic results, and decide that the plan, the goal, or the system, or themselves were wrong. So they scrap it and chase something new, repeating that cycle every 6 months. Eventually, they don't have a goal problem. They have an impatience problem. Don't do that. There's a huge difference between not yet and never. And confusing them has killed more goals than failure ever has. Take the cruise and the motorcycle I mentioned. Did I want them the moment I wrote them down? Absolutely. But I'll be clear with you, I was not going to finance them. I didn't want to pay for them forever. I wanted to pay cash for them. One and done. Furthermore, I live in a universe where I can't manifest thousands of dollars out of thin air. I lack those skills. I've never seen a penny appear from thin air. Everything came from hard work, dedication, and focus. Those items sat on my list for over a year before they happened. I didn't quit after year 1 or declare the dream dead. I rolled it forward. I let time do work and patience never can. A delayed goal is not a failed goal. It's simply a goal that hasn't arrived yet. And that's why it is a very different thing. Now, here's what nobody questions. January 1st. We collectively decided that it's when life starts. Gyms fill up, planners emerge, promises are made. But by Valentine's Day, the parking lot is empty. Why? Because most borrow a start date from culture instead of choosing one that means something to them. Personally, I go birthday to birthday. I've never forgotten my birthday. At my age, I'd like to forget a few. That date is personal. When it rolls around, I know what to do. Review the year, see what worked, adjust course, and set the next destination. It's simple. Pick a date that matters to you. Your anniversary, the day you got sober, the day you retired, the day you discovered my channel, or when you decided enough was enough. Make it yours. Use it as an anchor and a checkpoint. Use it as the day that you have an honest conversation with yourself instead of an imaginary one. Then let consistency do what it always has done. Slowly move you forward. Most worthwhile things happen quietly, gradually, one season at a time. A useful man doesn't wait for permission from a calendar, and he doesn't discard a good goal just because it needed another year to grow. So here we are, the end of the road regarding goals, at least for now. Look at the ground that we covered. We talked about wishes, those someday promises floating in your head for years, costing you nothing and getting you nowhere. We talked about fantasy, the difference between using a dream as fuel versus a place to hide. We talked about borrowed dreams, goals that sounded impressive but never belonged to you, carried only because someone else thought you should. We talked about drifting, the way a man can wake up decades later and realize that he spent his life reacting instead of choosing. Then we got to work. We wrote our goals down, read them out loud, we defended them, we crossed the fakes off, and we kept the ones that mattered, putting them where we couldn't ignore them anymore. Today, we discuss what happens next, how attention becomes action, action becomes evidence, and evidence becomes confidence, how confidence slowly changes the direction of a life. That's not nothing. In fact, that's work most people never do. Stay pointed, stay focused. The world is full of distractions, some accidental, some design. People want your time, money, energy, and focus. If you aren't careful, they'll spend it for you. You'll face critics who have never built anything and doubters who feel more comfortable if you stay put. Don't ask for permission to live your own life. People may tell you it's taking too long. Maybe it is, but keep going. They don't get a vote in your life. You do. Keep your list. Keep your evidence. Keep stacking small wins. Roll big goals forward when they need more time. When things move slower than you like, remember, not yet is not never. Most people were never taught how goals work. Nobody handed them a map or showed them how to stop drifting. Now you have one. What you do with it is up to you. Reading, thinking, or wishing won't create change. Doing will. So go build. Build the business, the savings, the stronger body, the better relationship, the life. Brick by brick. One choice at a time. When you finally cross that first goal off and feel that spark of pride from earning something honestly, don't keep it to yourself. Turn around and help someone else. Give them the map and share what you've learned. That's how useful people make more useful people. At the end of the day, that's the point. That's what a useful man does. Thanks for spending some useful time with me. Take it easy. If you encounter any existential crises on your way out, just tell them I'm busy. I'll catch you on the next one.